I am not a doctor, nor have I ever played one on TV, but I come at this today as an educator, as someone who has worked with children for many years, who has done some extra studying and training with a neuropsychologist, and looking today at what is ADD or ADHD. Hi, and welcome to Learning Life, and thank you so much for watching today, and thank you for your likes, thank you for the subscribes, thank you for the comments. Well, look, today I'm going to touch on something that really shouldn't be the controversial topic that it appears to be at times. You know, like when ADD gets brought into the conversation and everybody's like, ooh. You know, there are times I've actually read things that I'm like, oh my goodness, this feels like a conspiracy theory. It's not. It's just something that we can use to help describe our children or adults and the way that they think, the way that their brain is working. And you know what? Maybe they just need some help. Like, as I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't come at it from the medical side, but you know what? My younger brother has ADHD, and I remember the years of watching him go through monitoring and training, and I have studied under a neuropsychologist from the education side of how can we help these children. And, you know, let's just come back to what ADD is. It is just a neurological issue. It's just that our brain works differently. Those neurons fire differently. And because of that, we might have some signs or symptoms that make us act differently or do things differently. And it's not bad. You know, my heart breaks that these children sometimes get labeled as the bad kids when they're not. They just think differently and maybe have a whole lot of different impulses that we don't have. And you know, that's one of the hard things as a teacher when you are in a situation with lots of children. Like, what do you do if a child is showing the signs and symptoms of ADHD, and how do you work with them? And like, what do you do? You know, this can be awkward, and it can be hard as you really want to help them and everybody else. You know, as parents, we rise up, you know, and I've worked with children individually for a number of years, specifically to look at the things of areas of need as being a child with ADHD, to go, okay, how can I help you organize? How can I help you with impulse control? How can I help you with memory? You know, this is what I did, and actually I love doing. And anybody that comes and says, oh, my child is struggling with this, hey, here are some things that you can do. So let's look at, you know, some of the signs and the symptoms of ADHD. I think we sort of get that the ADHD, we're going to have that impulse control, you know, that constant moving, just maybe being the risk takers. You know, we just got to get out there. We can't maybe stop talking or, you know, all of these things. We get that. You know, there is memory issues and forgetfulness. And one of the big things is sort of like recall, like difficulty in just recalling, like, hey, what did you do today? You know, and it's just this almost becomes anxiety of like, what did I just do today? I can't think, you know. It just takes that moment to be able to reconnect and do it. And, you know, as a conversation moves on and then they're trying to play catch up, you know, this can be really hard. You know, the daydreamers. You know, I think we just always tend to look at it as like, well, they can't focus. They're not focusing. They're not doing well. They just need to focus. But guess what? Their brain is wired differently. That's just how it is. And we need people like with ADHD and ADD because their brains are wired differently. They're going to look at things differently. Now, yes, it might take them 20 times to repeat something to get it right and to have it to be automatic and part where it might only take us 2 or 3 times. So what? Let it take that 20 times. Now, I get that. As parents, you're like, will my child ever get this? I feel like I have told them 20 times, don't touch the hot stove. And 20 times they have touched the hot stove. It might take 21 times. It might take 30 times. It might just take more times than just our standard child that gets it. Oh, touch the stove, it's hot, won't do that again, because that impulse control is there, and so I've seen like this with children and they get written off, that they're going to fail. Like they're just not good students, when really they are. When you can tap in to how they learn, or you can give them the tools they need to stay organized and to help with recall and to help with memory and to get short-term memory into long-term memory. Wow, they can be like fantastic, amazing students. Let's not write them off. Now, I also think that ADD, I'm going to just say ADD, ADHD, they're really the same thing. One just has the impulse control. It's just easier to say ADD. That, is often misdiagnosed, because there are quite a number of signs and symptoms. And, maybe it's misdiagnosed as something else, or maybe that something else, like for example, sleep deprivation. Okay, it can mimic the signs and symptoms of ADD. Like food allergies and the reactions that bodies have and what it can do, like especially like with celiacs. You know what? It can mimic the signs and symptoms of ADD. And I think sometimes we are quick to judge and go, well, they can't stop moving, or they can't do this, or they can't do that, and don't actually look at maybe there are some situations like out of control or, just different things before jumping to the conclusion that it is ADD. Maybe they just need more sleep. Maybe they've been sick. Maybe there's been a traumatic experience at home. And so these things happen. And, I'm not judging anybody on this, doctors, parents alike, because I think we just go through this like, oh my goodness, what do? I really want to help my child. But sometimes maybe we're quick to jump to that and draw that conclusion instead of looking at underlying things. And I just say that from seeing that like over the years that have happened. But then I've also seen children that really were ADD that weren't, sort of diagnosed as that, and it was something else. And then they missed out on getting all the help that they needed. It really is, it can be murky waters and the way that our bodies operate and work. And yes, it's actually true that many children with ADD can have gut issues. Do I believe that gut issues cause ADD? I don't actually think that I do. I do think it's the other way around, that there seems to be a correlation, but not everybody who has ADD has gut issues. There's just so many different things. And I know that science is changing all the time. Like for my little brother, when he was diagnosed and was having brainwave activity monitored and all this, that, and the other, and there were 2 medications to what we have now and a better understanding of it. This is where science is fascinating and go, oh, wow, look at how our brains work. What can we do to help that? But there also, we have to come back and look at what is best for our children and how can we truly help them. So this is where we sort of then split into schooling and education. What are we going to do for our child who has been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD? So that really we have homeschooling and schooling. Yeah, let's just look at it that way. 2 simple, easy options. Now, a number of parents do choose to homeschool their children with ADD because they feel that they can provide an environment that is going to help them and maybe not feel like a failure or just feel frustrated because things aren't happening in a way that their brain is working. And I totally get that, to be able to take more regular breaks, to be able to break things down into smaller chunks, to really work on organization and control and all of that in a home environment can make it a lot easier. You get them a little trampoline. It's interesting to see how many children with ADD also have coordination issues, but a little mini tramp is fantastic. And so you get them jumping while they do their math, and it's building coordination and it's building up parts of their brain. There are things that we can do at home that we can't do in school. So I know for a number of parents, they're I also don't want my child medicated. So by keeping them at home, then maybe we can work on this and work on these things and build in that repetition that is so readily needed for children with ADD. And then we come to school, whether it's private school, public school, charter school, whatever it is. When our child is there and they have an official diagnosis, well, that opens up so many avenues, but you still need to be an advocate because having a diagnosis of ADHD or ADD will bring accommodations. You might be able to get a 504 or an IEP. And this will mean that the teachers need to be able to help provide these things. So I have worked with a number of families to just try and help get the accommodations written as they're going into 504 plan meetings or IEP meetings. So to be able to put in things like flexible seating, like it doesn't have to be a chair, but maybe an exercise ball so that they can wiggle and they can move, or to be able to move around the classroom, extra time on tests, or maybe extra time on assignments, or maybe even limiting the amount of work that is needed in assignments. Providing study guides or written instructions. It really depends on the child, but there are so many great accommodations that we can make for them so that school is successful. Forgetting to hand in homework can be a really big thing because we've just forgotten, or our mind is off here, or we're recalling that, 24 hours after I should have recalled it. And so homework doesn't get handed in. That's a failed grade. Like all of these things, we can put accommodations in place to help children to remember that. But there's also things that you can do to work with them at home. As I said, that's what I did. We called it learning coaching. I'm going to help you to be able to remember to do this. What are the steps that we need to do? And remember, the more that we do it, the easier it becomes. We will remember it. So there are a great number of accommodations, but you do need to be an advocate. You need to make sure that the 504 plan is being followed, or the IEP. Yes, schools have a legal requirement to follow them, but schools can be huge and there can be so many pulls on a teacher that maybe something has slipped through the cracks. They don't mean to, but as a parent, you might need to step up and, dropping that email and saying, oh, I've noticed this assignment. It's a really big written project, but no extra time was given. Could we please have 3 extra days, or whatever it is? Being there and being a friend with the teacher and helping them and letting them see that you were part of your child's education as well is a good thing. And I have worked with many parents who are fantastic advocates for their kids. And I'm like, yay, go you. And I remember all of them laughing, saying, the teachers probably don't like us because we're forever emailing. Like, but good for you. You're doing this for your children. ADD is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's really not. We don't really know where it comes from, but we do actually see it's happening, in hereditary sort of, it's coming through family lines. There are some genetics involved. Really, the more that we learn about it, the more fascinating it is. Or maybe that's just, I find it super fascinating because I'm a nerd and I love to find this stuff, but also because I love to see children feel like that they can succeed and do what it is that works best for them. And there are so many things that we can do for that. Now, I know that I could go into depth on so many different things, and I won't. But feel free to reach out to me, especially if you're interested in learning coaching, for your child. How can we help them, with organization, with memory, with recall? There are so many things that we can do. Do you need help to advocate for your child in getting the accommodations that they need? I would love to help you with that. Just reach out. We need to be able to help each other. As I said, I've worked with these kids for years and I love it. I really do love it. And I love watching them succeed. And for parents to feel like, whoa, we've got this. So thank you so much for watching today. And yes, feel free to shoot me a comment. And if you love these videos and would love to see more and be part of our community, you can. And you can be a champion. And you can check that out through patreon.com or my website, learningthis.life.